Hello, my name's Kenneth, but my friends call me Ken. I recently turned 33 and I have the craziest story to tell. Before the events of today's story took place, I wasn't one to believe in karma. All of those spiritual things didn't really appeal to me, and I just thought that they were placebo effects. But now I've had a change of heart. I'm now a firm believer in what goes around comes around, and it's all due to my evil mother-in-law and her equally evil relatives, except my gorgeous wife, of course, who somehow managed to supersede all of the evil that she was exposed to for all those years that she was living with them. The drama all began when this happened on one sunny Wednesday morning in my home. Babe, please come down here for a second. What is it, honey? I have a favor I need to ask you, and please don't say no. My wife proceeded to give me the cutest puppy dog eyes known to man. With a beautiful face like that, who could ever say no? She went on to explain to me how her mother, Georgina, was coming to town and she needed a place to stay. I knew where this was going, and I vehemently said no. But babe, it's only for the weekend. You mean to tell me you can't handle a sweet little old lady for one weekend? That lady was anything but little or sweet. She was evil incarnate. I swear to God, all of the movie renditions of evil in-laws will never amount to the hell I've gone through just to be with Kimberly. I genuinely wonder every day how such a sweet and kind lady was bred from chaos. As I began my campaign of how I simply couldn't manage it, and how Georgina would just have to stay in a hotel or something, Kimberly began to look upset. And, as I alluded to earlier, I am putty in her hands. This woman has my heart wrapped around her little finger. I begrudgingly agreed, and she squealed like a little schoolgirl, thanking me profusely. Because you've been so good and cooperative, I'm also going to make sure that she's on her best behavior too. Don't you worry. With any luck, you two won't even meet each other during the stay. It will all go smoothly, I promise. Well, that turned out to be a lie, because what unfolded next was something completely shocking and unexpected. It was a Friday afternoon, and my mother-in-law, Georgina, was set to arrive soon. We had prepped the guest room with all of the essentials and some of her favorite things so that she'd feel comfortable, and also be less dramatic and annoying, hopefully. At around noon is when I heard the doorbell, and my wife, who was in the kitchen at the time, preparing some things for her arrival, called out to me and said, "I think she's here, Kenny. Please go get the door." I braced myself and walked up to the door and opened it. On the other side was a woman who was baring her teeth. It wasn't a smile per se, rather she actually looked like she was scowling at me. My mother-in-law said, "Hello, Kenneth." "Hello, how was your trip? I hope you're doing all right." I invited her inside, taking her belongings, doing all of my hosting duties, without being too fussy or rude, but I already started to feel irritated when she began her ceaseless rants. Goodness gracious me, the patio looks stunning. Kenneth, did you work on this? Yeah, actually It simply looks gorgeous. I'll have to come and take some photos soon. Oh, you can take those bags upstairs to my room, dear. And please, could you get me some coffee? I'd like a caramel macchiato with some whipped cream, if you please. Did she think that this was a Starbucks? If you've ever seen a streetcar named Desire, you might have an idea of the type of person that Georgina was. She acted exactly like Blanche, someone who walked around with an air of superiority mixed perfectly with feigned innocence and naivety. She strutted as if every step she took was a blessing to be bestowed upon anyone who saw. I despised that arrogance, and what made it worse is that she was just rude as well. Just then, Kimberly walked out of the kitchen to greet her mother. "You look stunning." "Oh, stop it, Kimberly." "Do I? You're lying." "Well, I suppose I do look quite well. It's this new diet that I'm on. You should try it. You look like you might need it, sweetheart." But not this weekend. This weekend we can do whatever we want. That's why I ordered my caramel macchiato. Speaking of which, Kenneth, when might I be expecting that? I'm parched. I need something to drink right this instant, or else I might faint. See what I'm talking about? We ate some lunch that was beautifully prepared by my loving wife, and right after I had to Google how to make a caramel macchiato. She made it a mission to pick apart every flaw she found with the meal, with the quick and quipped follow-up of how it was fine and that we shouldn't worry too much. But next time we had to be extra careful not to make those silly mistakes, as she puts it, again. She enjoyed patronizing us, and for me personally, I could handle it, but I could tell at times that Kimberly couldn't deal with all of the pontifications. I mean, how could she? That was her mother, and there wasn't a single petty bone in her body. I couldn't say the same for myself, though, as I'm the type of person who gets my revenge when I can help it. Later on in the afternoon, Georgina droned on and on about how she loved the house. Well, she expressed her love for it in her unique way. Of course my time in Bora Bora was quite marvelous, but I didn't quite much enjoy it as I did when I went to Zanzibar, with such beautiful scenery and even lovelier people. My vacation here won't be the same as those stunning places, but it is a vacation nonetheless. I believe that perhaps this simpler vacation might humble me, considering I've been to many lavish places. This will be a nice and slower change of pace, I think. Fellas, I know I'm not the only one when I say that I zoned out of the conversation many, many times, and even when I zoned back in to check if the conversation had gotten even just slightly interesting, it was still going on. Georgina had a knack for extending things far more than they needed to be extended. Nonetheless, we chatted the afternoon away, and by we, I mean mainly Kimberly and Georgina. I was just a piece of decor, sitting next to my wife to make sure she was still comfortable, occasionally providing my 2 cents to the conversation to make it look like I was listening. It was around 4 p.m. that same evening when things started to take a left turn. You know, Kimberly, I've been praising your house ever since you got here, and can I just say that it is stunning? Oh, thanks a lot, Mom. We've been putting in the work to improve this place, and Kenny and I spent a lot of time prepping for your arrival, and, you know, it's so good. I simply cannot keep this beauty to myself. What do you mean? Yes, Georgina, what do you mean? Well, you know, on my adventures to Cancun or Fiji or India, just to name a few, I've always brought along some friends or family with me, just because I don't like spending my vacations alone. You know, I'm getting older, and going to these foreign places can be dangerous for me. It's become somewhat of a tradition for me to go with people like Ursula or Justine. Oh, that's a nice tradition. How are they? It's been a while since I last spoke with them. Oh, well, it's funny you ask, because they are on their way here now, so you can ask them yourself. Kimberly almost spits out the coffee that she was sipping on steadily throughout the afternoon. I would have done an Oscar-worthy spit take had I had any liquid in my mouth, because I was guffawed at what she just said. Nonetheless, I maintained my composure and managed to stifle out a, "Kim." "Kitchen now, please." We went to the kitchen to discuss this ridiculousness. Tell me she's joking. Babe, I don't think she is. But you told me only she was coming. We only prepared for one person. I'm just as blindsided as you are, babe. I swear I didn't know anything until now, just like you. I began pacing up and down the kitchen. Well, what are we going to do? I guess we just have to tell her that we only prep for one person, and perhaps we can put the girls in a hotel, and then they can come over during the day to hang out with Mom. I sighed and huffed. This was just all so convenient, wasn't it? Note the sarcasm. As much as I inquired about the well-being of Ursula and Justine, my aunt-in-law and sister-in-law respectively, I was not interested in entertaining them all weekend. They, unfortunately, were very similar to their mother. Not as bad, but having all of them around would be a chaotic combination. We argued about it a little bit more until Georgina herself came to the kitchen. What is the issue with you? I thought it a nice idea to bring along other family members to enjoy this vacation weekend with me. She began to pout, and for some reason it affected Kimberly the same way that Kimberly's pouting affected me. When she wanted to, Georgina could manipulate her way into anything with her puppy dog eyes. I'm guessing the apple didn't fall too far from the tree in that regard. Oh, no, Mom, please don't be upset. It was a lovely idea, but I'm afraid we just can't handle this sudden change, especially on such short notice. Kenny and I were discussing putting up Aunt Ursula and Justine in a hotel nearby, and then they can come over during the day. And Jolene? Sorry? I said, and Jolene? Jolene is also coming along with them. Oh, so an additional 3 people are coming, meaning you want 4 extra people to be in this house? I'm so sorry, Georgina, but that won't fly. Oh, Kenny, darling, don't be such a stick in the mud. Jolene simply has to come. She hasn't been part of the tradition, and she's been wanting to join in, and she is your younger sister-in-law after all. We have to accommodate her. And honestly, you're not even considered our real family, so it makes sense for you to leave and for the rest of the girls to come over and stay. It's just for a couple of days, after all. Mom, how can you say that? Kenny is our real family. Is he, though? You're putting him above your actual sisters? That's not what I'm saying, and that isn't the main issue that we had, Mom. We were concerned about space. We don't think there'll be enough room to house everybody. I'm glad you brought that up, because I have come up with a very helpful solution that will please everybody. Okay, let's hear it. Okay, so I was thinking that perhaps Ursula and I could share the bed in the guest room, considering how large it is, and then Jolene could sleep in Kimberly's bed. There was a pause. I was very lost. I glanced over to my wife, and she too shared the same confused expression. I finally asked, so you want 3 people to sleep in one bed? I know the bed is big, but that is such an uncomfortable and inappropriate thing to suggest, don't you think? Yeah, Mom. We aren't kids anymore. It won't be appropriate to share a bed with my husband and my sister in the same space. Aha! I knew you'd say that, which is why I think it's best if Kenneth doesn't stay here during this time. Again, there was another pause. At that moment, I think the lady finally lost all her marbles. So you want me to leave my house? Kenny, darling, don't call me that. Kenneth, don't speak to me that way. Kimberly, are you going to let him speak to me that way? Okay, listen. I don't appreciate you coming into my house and making such last-minute demands. I don't think it's fair. If you wanted a girls' trip or whatever you ladies call it, that would have been fine by me. Had you made such preparations in advance, why didn't you just tell us that this is what you wanted? And why would you say I'm not your real family? That's such a rude thing to say. I didn't think you'd be so upset and fussy about it now. Honestly, you're acting quite childish in all of this. Don't you agree, Kim? I don't even know what to say. Mom, I don't think it's fair. Oh, you younger generation are being so sensitive, honestly. I didn't do this on purpose. It must have just slipped my mind. I'm sure you understand. I didn't understand, but I looked over at my wife, and she looked at me with pleading eyes. I buckled and sighed out of frustration and said, Georgina, I really would have appreciated some better communication. As I mentioned earlier, I really wouldn't have minded leaving you ladies to your own devices all weekend. I, too, would have gone on a boys' trip or worked at the orphanage or something like that. But springing this up on people isn't appropriate. We are adults. As much as you view us as your children, we have invited you into our home, and you need to respect that. All while I was remaining calm and politely informing her of her blunder, she was scoffing, walking around, and even laughing at times as if to avoid the embarrassment of being confronted by her sister-in-law. Nevertheless, I continued, You want to have a girls' trip and have all the girls here for the weekend? Fine. Do you want me out of the house? That's fine too, but I'll come back after this weekend. And with that, I kissed my wife on the cheek and proceeded to go to our room. All the while, Kimberly was trying to talk some sense into her mother and letting her know that this was not okay and that she seriously upset me. But similar to how she was interacting with me, Georgina would just laugh it off and act as if I was being a big baby. I packed some clothes in a big duffel bag and said my adieus. I then booked a hotel room online and proceeded to make my way there, not before visiting the orphanage where I would regularly volunteer, as was mentioned previously. The orphanage is called Open Arms, and I love working there. As much as I love it, I know it is not for the faint of heart, as dealing with unruly and disobedient toddlers, children, and teenagers is very much a hassle. All while I was playing and helping out the children that evening, I was wondering what exactly I was going to do to exact my revenge. Don't get me wrong, I'm not evil, or at least I don't think I am, but I do enjoy teaching people a lesson. I guess that's what makes me great for the job. I have built a good rapport with the children, exacting both loving and warm energy mixed with discipline so that they don't take advantage of me. And as such, the kids and I get along just fine. So much so to the point that some of them could see right through my frustration and even asked, "Ken, is everything okay?" Hmm? Yeah, everything's fine. Sorry, kiddo. I just recently got into an argument with my mother-in-law. I explained the situation to him in layman's terms. I mean, he was a kid after all, but even though he's a child, he seemed to understand well, and not only that, sympathize with my situation. With all due respect, Ken, your mother-in-law is crazy. Trust me, I know, Mav. You got to get back at her somehow. Just to teach her a lesson, right? But how? We pondered for some time, and honestly, I came up with nothing. But what Maverick said next changed everything. We could help. What are you talking about? We could help. If you take a handful of us kids and bring us to your house, we could ruin her weekend. I thought about it, and then I thought about it some more, and I swear Maverick, just as his name suggests, was an evil genius. It made perfect sense. The kids would have a weekend getaway that was very much needed, and I could get back at my mother-in-law for disrespecting my space and my time. We made the necessary plans, like two evil geniuses working on a plan for world domination, and we waited until the next day to exact the revenge. The next day was a Saturday, and it went as follows. Kimberly approached the door as she heard the doorbell go off, and she was greeted with a lovely surprise. "Why, hello, Kimberly." "Kenny! Oh, Maverick! Hello, how are you?" At that point, she realized that there were about 4 other children that came along, and she aptly looked confused. "What's going on, babe?" "Oh, nothing. I just thought that I'd bring the kids along to partake in the very lovely vacation that Georgina was conducting." I walked into the room bringing all 5 kids with me, all with ages ranging from 6 to 10. These kids were considered the unruliest of the bunch, but they were also loving when they wanted to be. It's just when they felt disrespected that they would go crazy, and I promised them all an ice cream treat if they promised to be as chaotic as they possibly could be. "Hello, Kenneth. How are you? Oh, who are these beautiful children?" "Good morning, Georgina. I hope you're all well. I see the rest of the gang managed to make it." "Hey, Kenneth. How are you?" "I'm well, thank you." "Who are these children?" "Oh, these children. These are some of the kids from the orphanage." "Yes, dear, we can see that. But why are they here?" "Good question. Maverick, would you like to answer that?" "Oh, well, Ken just told us all about the lovely vacation you were having in his home. And you see, we haven't ever been on a vacation, so he invited us over to join in the festivities." The in-laws, who were all communing in the living area, sipping on mimosas and eating croissants, all gasped in unison and shared looks of horror on their faces. At that moment, some of the kids began to grab at what was on the table. Some got fistfuls of bacon, others got pancakes, and others took very big glugs of orange juice. The looks of horror grew in intensity, and at that moment Georgina stood up and whisked me away from the inbounding commotion that was about to ensue. "What is the meaning of this?" "Just as Maverick said. I wanted the kids to have a little vacation of their own. I'm sure you wouldn't mind." "How can you bring all these kids into the house? This is just too much, and someone named Maverick is bound to cause problems. This was meant to be a relaxing weekend for me and the girls. You know this." "Oh, well, I'm sure you wouldn't mind. It's only for a couple of days after all." "Okay, listen here, buddy. I know you're upset." "No, you listen here, Georgina. I've had it with you acting all high and mighty and acting as if you own the place. If you want to stay here for a vacation, that's fine. But the kids are staying too. They deserve to enjoy just as much as you do. So hopefully next time you want to cause problems for other people and be an inconvenience to others, you'll remember that it's not so nice when it's done to you." And with that, I didn't give her another opportunity to speak. I just walked back into the living room to see the chaos ensue. "Little girl, don't you dare play with that. That is an expensive designer bag. Don't you dare. I swear to God, you little gremlins are causing so much havoc." "Is this what the vacations are normally like? Because if so, I don't want it anymore." The ladies were being harassed by the unruly children who were causing chaos. And you might be wondering about how Kimberly was feeling. I looked around for her, and she was in the corner of the room, snickering to herself. She found this to be funny, too. You might also be wondering how I was feeling watching my house getting torn apart, and to that, I will say that it was all worth it. To see the absolute looks of horror and disdain on my in-laws' faces, I didn't mind cleaning up, and Maverick even said that they would be responsible for the messes they make, and they promised to help clean once they were done. I just needed to witness this moment of absolute chaos as the ladies were frantically trying to deal with children that they'd never had to deal with. It was so awkward and laughable to witness the stark contrast between the prim and proper older ladies with the young and chaotic children. Well, it looks like everything is in order. I'll be on my way then. I'll pick up the kids tomorrow or maybe on Monday. Cheerio! And with that, I left the house, laughing in my hotel room. I then called Kimberly and told her that the kids aren't meant to attack her, just the snobby ladies, and if at any point in time she needed a break, she could come to stay with me in the hotel. I will never forget that day, as it was one of the best days of my life.